Welcome to the Empowered Women Life Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Karen Bashford. This podcast is for every woman who has ever felt limited by her past, silenced by trauma, or held back by society's expectations. Each week, we will share powerful stories, expert insights, and practical tools to help you become the leader of your own life. Today, I'm going to speak about astrology. Perhaps not something you would consider for yourself, or how much of an impact it could have on your life. However, it's something that I have found to be very, very beneficial. Why do I say astrology? Well, since I was a child, I've always been fascinated by the stars. And as I grew up, I began to realize that horoscopes were quite useful. They could give me a bit of an insight into what kind of day it was going to be, or what perhaps the week was going to be like. Yes, they're very generic because they don't take into account your actual star sign positions of your birth and things like that. But they were a good insight into what was going on. And as I grew, I began to realize that they could prove very, very helpful. So I started doing research, not a lot until after I'd actually experienced my nervous breakdown. And it was almost as if the universe was stating, here you are, here's some really useful information that could help you. So I started listening to YouTube recordings of what star signs were. I listened to the astrology for the month, for the year, and things like that. And the more I listened, the more I realized that actually there's a lot of guidance in astrology. Now, I have made notes, so I will be referring to my notes because I'm not an expert on astrology. I have dabbed in it. I understand it, but I certainly would not want to say to somebody, this is going to happen and this is the reason, da, 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 da. That wouldn't be correct. And I'm all about being open and honest, both with myself and with you. So, astrology is a mirror. It's not a prediction. It is a mirror. I want to get that straight. You cannot use astrology to predict what is likely to happen. It is simply a guide, a bit like a tarot reading, astrology, or anything else that can potentially help you understand what is going on in your life and to perhaps make different decisions, because you can anticipate what is likely to be coming in energetically from the planetary movements, from the moon position, and such like. So astrology is basically a symbolic language, and it's been around for centuries. They use the stars as a means of guidance for seafarers. So it's not that it's unknown. And obviously, having this information over the centuries has grown as we, as a race, have improved our understanding of how the planets work, how we live on Earth, and the impact of the moon, of those planets, and such like. So it's helping you, but it can never be used as an excuse. It should never be used as a life sentence. So just because you have a certain sign that will impact you at a certain time of your life doesn't mean to say it's going to be so powerful that it's going to stop you doing something. The aim of astrology is to just give you an insight in how planets affect you and what you need to be aware of. when they're changing positions. Now, I've spoken about the moon energy before now and the impact it has on me. And at the moment, we had a new moon, and it has affected my emotions because the moon is water. It connects to the water in our body. It connects to the water on Earth and the flow of the tides and things like that. So if you can appreciate how powerful the moon is, imagine how powerful some of the really bigger, slow-moving planets can have on our lives. Now, I'm sharing this simply because I'm very conscious that as I've come out of my nervous breakdown and realizing what's been happening planetarily, I've noticed how those planets' movements have changed things for me in a way that perhaps I didn't anticipate, or in ways that I wasn't expecting. And it's also allowed me to understand why I've reacted in certain circumstances in the way I did, because of the impact they've had on my actual emotional well-being, my beliefs, because they have houses. Astrology has houses. Now, I can't explain it to you. All I know is that certain houses relate to certain financial matters, relationships, careers, health, and things like that. And as I've followed the astrology and the movement of the planets through astrology, I've come to realize that depending which planet is in what house, how much I change, I learn, I realize, or I finally get to understand. So for me, astrology is simply another tool that will help you understand yourself. And as I said previously, depending on the positions of the planets at your birth, depends on which house they would be in for you in particular, but also how much of an effect they have on certain parts of your life at certain times. So that awareness will make your life easier. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute you sit and study astrology. There's plenty of ways that you can acquire the information depending what you're willing to do. You can buy books. You can certainly listen to YouTube videos, because on YouTube, there's some fantastic channels that share about a particular star sign and the impact that has on the star and the person you are. For me, Gemini is very relevant because I am a Gemini, but it's also what time or what day of the month in that Gemini period that I was born depends on what planetary movement has an impact on me. So just having a basic knowledge will help you. Reading daily horoscopes is okay, but not necessarily very helpful because they are so generic. They can give you a slight guideline, but they're not beneficial necessarily. When you understand how astrology impacts you, you change from what's wrong with me or what's the problem to understanding why you're behaving the way you are, partly because of the planets, but partly because of who you are within your star sign. However, you can look at your star sign in different ways. You have the sun sign. The position of your sun in astrology will impact how you behave for your identity and vitality. You have the moon sign. That's your emotional needs and safety. You have your rising sun. So that is very much about how you meet life. You have challenging placements where we work harder or where we're not likely to fail. And we have repeating themes, patterns in relationships, work, or self-sabotage. Now, for me, that is what really interests me, because it enables me to better appreciate why I have behaved in such a way as a child, but then I've entered another new cycle of a position of a planet moving and it's going through its cycle. That changed something for me, which then meant that something within me changed. So consequently, I behaved differently. These are only guidance. I cannot stress enough they are guidance. They give you ideas of why you have behaved as you have. It's like the toolkit, the Sloth or Beaver toolkit. The questions and reflections in the toolkit as part of it is to just give you an understanding of why you behaved as you have and what you can do about changing them, because with awareness, we can change anything. So astrology is giving you an awareness of your behavior, of your likely patterns, of your personality, of your identity, of your emotions. And I, for one, have always appreciated the Moonology diary, simply because it tells you about moon positions. And I've shared so often, this is the old one for 24. I've not purchased the new one this year yet. I'm a bit behind on that. But it gives you an idea of what the moon is in its position, and what star sign it is in, because depending on the star sign it's in, depends on how we behave. There's far more to astrology than we realize. And yes, I can swear it really does impact how we live, how we behave, how we react. And it can be very beneficial if you understand why you're doing something that doesn't logically make sense. But astrology will show you why you're behaving as you are. And basically, it's not logical, because how can a planet impact us? But it does. It's one of those mystical things that happens in our world that we cannot explain in a way that is logical. But it's being able to trust that what is going on in your life is for a reason. It's trusting that everything that flows in your life or feels stuck at times has happened due to you, to planetary positions, to the moon position, without us even necessarily knowing. Now, I'm not saying it rules us, because obviously we can make our own decisions, but with insights, we can make different decisions. We can choose to wait until the planetary position has moved. That allows things to flow better. Mercury is a planet that rules communication. It's the Gemini ruling planet. If you're a Gemini, especially, now I can't say for other star signs, but if you're a Gemini, when Mercury is in our ruling house, it can affect our communication. It has the ability to misinterpret messages. It has the ability to cause electrical or electronic issues with computers and things like that, with our phones. It can cause delays in us traveling because communication isn't clear. I know a lot about Mercury because it is the Gemini ruling planet, so it will have an impact. I also know that it can have an impact when it's in certain positions against other planets. So having that knowledge has enabled me to appreciate far more why my life has unfolded in the way it has. That has made a big that has made a big difference in my decisions. But as I say, this has only really come about from when I had my nervous breakdown. It was like I'd been waiting until I could understand fully my history, my behavior, and everything that had been occurring and the reasons behind it. You don't have to wait for that nervous breakdown. You don't have to wait until something major happens in your life to start appreciating just how much astrology can help you. So astrology can be a tool for self-leadership. It supports boundary awareness, decision-making, energy management, because as I've shared already, when the moon's in a certain position, like the full moon or the new moon, it will impact me emotionally. It can impact anyone emotionally. It's recognizing when you've been overriding your nature. Without realizing it, we connect with nature. So ultimately, it's part of who we are. And when you have a desire to go out into nature more, when you have a desire to do something that's totally out of sync to what you would normally do, there's a reason for it. It's part of who we are. It's our nature, but also it's nature in the sense of nature is ruled by planetary movements. You've seen about the earthquakes that have been occurring. You've seen about the volcanoes. That is affecting or being affected by planetary movements. Everything on Earth is affected in some way or other through the energetic connections we have with the planets. Now, for you, if you've listened this far, this might make sense. You might be thinking about something that's occurred that really made sense. Like I know that even though initially I thought my nervous breakdown was because I'd reached my breaking point, but when I looked back at the planetary positions and what planet was in what house, at the time that I initially started my breakdown through physical breakdown, it started to make sense because I'd been going through a cycle of experience, of learning from that experience, of gaining understanding, of actually physically experiencing my life. But once the planets reached a certain point, and there was a shift, it then allowed me to start going into that healing phase of releasing everything that had been happening to me, that I'd stored, that had caused me harm, that had caused me to be financially broke at times, of feeling unloved, unwanted, undeserving, of actually recognizing just how much I was letting circumstances control my life. But that only came about because there was a planetary movement in 2022 to 2023 that allowed me to start moving into the next phase of my life. Astrology enables you to see how you relate to your body, your expectations of yourself, the repeating life and patterns which I've just explained. It also emphasizes about choice. This isn't destiny, it's a choice. It's a choice that I followed because I didn't know any better. But with my awakening from my nervous breakdown, I started to realize I had far more choices than I ever believed possible. Now, I talk about myself here, and I will always talk more about myself than clients, simply because, as I've explained previously, I don't retain clients' information when we have discussions. I don't want to. It's their story. I have information that I get permission to share with you. But when I'm doing these podcasts, I share about my experiences. Simply because I can give a better insight, I can get a better feeling for things, I can give a better understanding from my perspective rather than from somebody else's perspective. And empowering yourself is about empowering you, not relying on somebody else's story. And that's why you rarely hear me share about other people's life experiences, unless it's something that I really have retained because I felt it was so important. So ask yourself a question. Do you know your star sign? Do you know that how you behave relates to your star sign? Have you just been aware that astrology plays a part in life, but haven't really taken much note about it? The more you're willing to explore, the more you'll learn about yourself. You can integrate astrology into your life. It makes it usable. If you know from the Moonology book, perhaps, or from YouTube videos that explain, oops, my video's gone all funny. Let's bring it close and move it back. No, that's it. Yeah, it goes funny when I move too fast. If you have the Moonology, it explains, gives you insights for what's happening that week. There's a lot more happening that week than previously. Where's the full moon? So it explains what's happening in a certain month, like March. It's all so very relevant for you to be able to journal your week. It's very relevant for you to be able to journal your months, your year. You can actually use the information you obtain from astrology to actually plan your year. It enables you to appreciate at certain times of the year that's the best time to perhaps launch something new, or it's the best time to prepare to go on holiday because it's right for you. Obviously, if there's other family members, it makes a difference. But if you're looking at what's right for you, it can make a big difference. It can tell you even whether you're going to potentially have a month where there's a lot of relationship building. Now, I'm not talking about love relationships. I'm just talking about relationships. It can tell you the months that perhaps you need to avoid getting involved with anything that's major because the energy for you is going to be off. So astrology is brilliant for enabling you to plan, to understand how you want your month to work out, knowing that astrology is impacting you in some way. It can help you track your emotional patterns and energy levels. Moon plays a big part. So knowing when the moon is going to be full, when it's going to be a new moon, will have a way of helping you to plan forward. In my diary, I now have when the moon is full and when it's new. I've literally gone through the whole year and recorded those dates, because I know that when it's a full moon, I'm going to be emotional. I also know when it's a new moon, there is going to be a lot of emotions that I'm going to be experiencing. That's the nature of the moon for me. It affects me emotionally. So planetary wise, there could be other signs. When Mercury goes retrograde, as in seeming to go backwards, that slows things down. So knowing when that is likely to happen for me, I can plan accordingly so that I'm not pushing in those weeks where Mercury is retrograde and consequently looking for me to slow down and reflect rather than push and expand. So positions of planets really do help give you a better appreciation of who you are, your energy levels, your emotional levels. But it enables you to have more body awareness simply because you can appreciate what your body is responding to, whether you're going to feel sluggish or energized. A bit like seasons, we know that as we go into winter, we're slowed down and we're wanting to hibernate. But are we taking that into account, or do we just keep doing the same? Do we expect to do the same amount of work, not give ourselves the rest our bodies are asking for? It enables for conscious decision making, as I shared. Certain energy has an impact, certain planetary positions have an impact on our ability to decide. So instead of being pushed, pulled, and literally stretched in all directions, you get to have a proper say in what's going on in your life through conscious awareness of what the planets are doing. I would emphasize being curious initially. And once you've gained these insights into your planets, how it impacts you, your star sign, your moon position, the ascending sign, once you have that information, you can be curious and play with that information to see just how much the planets are affecting your decisions, your choices, how you behave, how you're feeling, and so much more. It doesn't tell you who you are. It just gives you the ability to understand yourself more, understand why things happen the way they do for you without necessarily having a reason. Because when things happen, we like to have a reason for why they're happening. And yes, everything happens for a reason. But actually, if it's planetary movements, can we really explain it away? Because it's different. It's an unknown that over time, if you really do your research, you get to appreciate just how much you can change things for yourself and have better control how you live, how you react, and even the people that you invite into your life. Because I know certain people do not work with me in the same way that perhaps an Aries, which is a good sign for me, can work. I can have a Gemini, I can have a Libran, but there's certain signs that don't necessarily work with me because we clash. I'm thinking of a Leo. A Leo can work with me because they're fiery and I'm a calming person. And I can see two sides. So I can be that fiery person, but I can also be that calm person. Aries is somebody who pushes through, who gets things done. As a Gemini, I know that sometimes I can be very, very slow and don't want to do things. So having an Aries as a support person could help me. So it's having that information that helps you manage teams better, because when you understand why people behave as they do, and it doesn't necessarily make sense, you compare them so that they work together well, but they also support each other well. Or you can recognize that when there's likely to be clashes because there's two planetary people that really don't work well together, that are likely to be causing problems in a team. There's so much that you can use astrology for that really I would recommend you consider doing your research, initially for yourself, but also consider the people that are around you. What are their star signs? How are you going to work together? Are there likely to be clashes? It will help you empower yourself to live a better life. I, for one, am grateful that I learned more about myself as a Gemini and how I react and behave than as much as anything else, because it's given me freedom to choose differently. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.